So, when we talk about Indian classical literature that has a rich history that spans or that took several millennia and reflects the diverse cultural, philosophical, and social development of India. It covers works written in a classical language like Sanskrit, Pali, Prakrit, Tamil, and many others. These works from the foundation of Indian literary tradition and have profoundly influenced not only Indian literature but also global thought and culture. What are they? Sanskrit, Pali, Prakrit, and Tamil, isn't it? So when it's early beginning. Now, if you look into that, the history of Indian classical literature begins with the Vedas, right? Veda, the oldest and most pure text of Indian civilization and written around 1500 to 500 BC. The Rig Veda, the earliest of the four Vedas. So we talk about the Veda, which is considered as the oldest and most sacred. And second, it's called as the earliest of the four Vedas is a collection of hymns. Hymns means poems, right? Hymns that from the core of Indian spirituality and philosophy. So these texts were orally transmitted for centuries for before being written down, and they, took the groundwork for later literary works. So that is what the early beginning you can say. So it began in the year of 1500 to 500 BC, right? Vedas were the oldest and sacred. Third is called as Rig Veda was the earliest out of the four Vedas, right? And these Vedas were generally transmitted orally. Orally means only spoken before being written down. So, beside that, the epic literature. Following the Vedic period, Indian classical literature that saw the emergence of the two great epics. So, two great epics which are known as the Mahabharata and Ramayana. We knew that. And these epics composed in where? In which language? Sanskrit language. So, they are not just stories, but you can say that vast repositories of mythology, right? So, not only mythology, philosophy, morality, and social values, they have covered the cultural and moral fabric of India for centuries. So, if you take Mahabharata, that attributed to the sage Vyasa, Vyasa who wrote that, right? Isn't it? Veda Vyasa, right? So this epic is the longest poem ever written, containing around 1 lakh verses. It covers stories for war, duty, righteousness, and the famous Bhagavad Gita, which is a spiritual and philosophical dialogue, right? If you get the question about Mahabharata, right, then you're supposed to write that 1 lakh verses have been written. Second, it's called as the Mahabharata stories, which is based on what? War, then after righteousness, duty, and the famous Bhagavad Gita, right? Which is nothing but a spiritual and philosophical dialogue. Similar to that, if you go to the second one, Ramayana, so that attributed to sage Valmiki, Mahabharata is a Vyasa, Ramayana is attributed to the sage Valmiki, and this epic narrates the story of Lord Rama, his exile, and his search to rescue his wife Sita from the demon king Ravana. It teaches the values of duty, devotion, and morality, isn't it? So these are the things that have been taught to you. So then the third one is called as a classic Sanskrit literature. So what we drawn so far now, we talk about the introduction to the history of Indian classical literature, its early beginning, and the epic literature, Mahabharata and Ramayana. Then the next one, we talk about classical Sanskrit literature. During the classical period, roughly 300 BC to 1200 CE, right, Sanskrit literature flourished under royal patronage. Royal patronage means called as the royal king, isn't it? So, and a wide range of literary forms like dramas, poetry, and prose that came out. Prominent works of this period include Kalidas' work, Bharata Natya Shastra, and Bhasa Bhavabhuti and Sutraka. So these are nothing but the works of this period. Which period? The classical period, isn't it? So classical in Sanskrit, Sanskrit literature, 300 to 1200 BC. So when you talk about Kalidas's work, often regarded as the greatest Sanskrit poet and playwright, Kalidas, who wrote masterpieces like Sakuntala, Meghaduta, isn't it? And Kumara Sambhava, right? So, which are celebrated for their poetic beauty and emotional depth. Similar to the Bharata Natya Shastra, this is also earliest known work on dramaturgy and the performing arts that laying the foundation for Indian aesthetics. Indian aesthetics means Indian beauty and theatre. Then the third one, we talk about Vasa, Bhababhuti, and Sudraka. And these dramatists further contributed to the richness of Sanskrit drama with works like Swapna Vasavadatam, right, Uttama Charita, or Uttara Charita, and Mrichikatika, right? So these are the, you can say that the literature which have been written. Then we talk about the development of regional literature. And when we talk about regional literature, we understood that how regional languages like Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, Bengali, and the others begin to flourish during the time of 6th century, isn't it? Then Indian classical literature influence is also deeply intertwined. Intertwined means connected with a variety of religious and philosophical tradition, like you can talk about Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and texts like important texts like Upanishada, Jataka story, Tripitaka, and Jaina Agamas that are provided huge insight into spiritual and moral life. And then we talk about the conclusion that how the genesis or beginning and evolution of Indian classical literature that reflect India's vast cultural and intellectual history from the sacred Vedas, or sacred means called as holy Vedas, to the epics, from classical Sanskrit drama to regional language literature. And these works have not only defined Indian cultural identity, but have also influenced the broader area of world literature. Understanding this rich literary culture or heritage that allows for a deeper appreciation or deeper acknowledgement of India's contribution to global art and thought, art, philosophy, and thought. Right? Now we talk about that what significance or importance of rasa theory. Right? So in ancient India, several theories were developed. Theories. Were developed to explain literature. The four major theories are known as rasa, rasa, dhvani, and bakrokti, and alamakara. Right? Rasa, what are they? That actually, if you talk about that focus on emotional expression, rasa, focus on emotional expression. And dhvani deals with the indirect or suggestive expression. And Prakrit that relates to style and structure expression. And if you talk about Alankara, refers to figurative language or expression, right? Among these, you will find out the rasa theory holds a very important place. It is considered the ultimate standard for creating literature. The rasa theory that gives importance to the meaning and emotion in a literary work that brings a special kind of a joy or happiness, which is known as ananda, right? So, ananda to whom? Readers, viewers, or audiences. This joy or this happiness is known as rasa. and it is seen as the essence of poetry, means quality of poetry. And it is believed that without rasa, no meaning can truly be expressed in poetry, right? So in this particular chapter, actually, we are going to express what the main feature, right? What are the main feature of the rasa theory and its influence on later literary criticism, how it impacts on literary criticism. So the first one is called as the Bharata Natya Shastra. So when we talk about Bharata Natya Shastra, the Natya Shastra is a beginning work on Indian drama, right? And drama and aesthetic written by Bharata. Who is Bharata? Bharata Muni, right? In the 3rd century BC, Bharata Muni was the first who presents the rasa theory and also known as rasa siddhanta, right? So in this particular agreement, he believed drama had a divine origin, right? That called as a God's gift, and he considered it is the 5th Veda, right? We have 4 Vedas, right? Rig Veda, Sam Veda, Atharva Veda, Yajur Veda, and this one is known as the 5th Veda, right? So, which one? Rasa theory, isn't it? The Natya Shastra is the first known Sanskrit text on the art of drama and performance. In the 6th and 7th chapters of the Natya Shastra, which is named as a Rasadhyaya. Rasadhyaya means Adhyayana, Rasadhyana, right? So, and Bhavadhyaya, Rasadhyaya, Bhavadhyaya. So, Bharatapuni explains his concept of a bhava. Bhava means emotion, rasa is called as a expression, emotion and expression, and rasa, which is known as an expression or essence of a flavor, which became foundational principles in Indian beauty. These actually chapters are written as answers to questions which are generally asked by the reader, isn't it? So, Bharata's Natya Shastra provides details and a deep understanding into the principle of poetics, right? So, especially drama, which was a popular literary for an ancient Indian drama. He Bharat often refers to drama as a what? Kavya. Kavya means poetry, right? So, drama as Kavya, showing his view that drama is a form of poetry. The text serves as a guide for actors to master the art of acting and dramatists to write perfect plays, right? It also aims to help viewers better appreciate a work of art, right? Now, in that case, its main aim actually, you can say that what when you see any of the picture, you see any of the drama, read any of the poetry, so you appreciate that, right? So the Natya Shastra is an important ancient Indian text, Natya Shastra. So we talk about the rasa theory and then we talk about Natya Shastra. The Natya Shastra is an important ancient Indian text on drama and performance, and we understand that that is written by Bharata Muni. Over time, many scholars who wrote explanation, right? Or you can say that explanation means give commentaries. Give commentaries on this text to help people understand its deep concepts better, right? Unfortunately, most of these criticism, or you can say that commentaries have been lost. But one major work, which is considered as Abhinava Bharati, right, by Abhinav Gupta. Abhinava Bharati by Abhinav Gupta. So that still now present, right? And it provides nothing but a huge or valuable picture into both the Natya Shastra and the ideas of other important criticism, right? So look at some of the key commentaries on the Natya Shastra. Key commentaries means key criticism, which are given by different writers. So one is called as a Bhatta Lolota, right? Bhatta Lolota. Now, who was he? Now, Bhatta Lolota is a philosopher and a literary thinker. So, and Lolota analyzed how the different parts of a performance come together to create rasa or emotional experience both on stage and for the audience, right? Then second, you would find out Sri Sankuka. Sri Sankuka. And now Sri Sankuka, who was he? If you talk about Sri Sankuka, he is a contemporary, right? Who lived around the same time as Vatta Lolota from Kashmir. And Sankuka had a unique perspective on aesthetic. Aesthetic means beauty. And he differentiated between rasa as something that happens on stage, right? So the beautiful object, and rasa as something that happens in the mind of the audience. So when audience see the drama, so you find out the beauty of the drama, and that goes in the mind of the audience. So the and that's what known as an aesthetic experience, right? And he used ancient logical principle to discuss this, right? So next you would find out. So we understood about Vatta Lolota. Second is none other than Sri Sankuka. Then third one is called as a Vatta Nayaka. So Vatta Nayaka is another major commentator of the Natya Shastra. So Vatta Nayaka, you can say that introduced the concept of what? You can say Sadharana Karana, right? Sadharana Karna. Or Sadharana Karana means what? That called as a generalization. Sadharana Karana. Generalization which explains how poetic language works to evoke or influence rasa in a universal way and making it relatable for all. Again, he also stated about what? Rasa. And what does he point out? He points out that means poetic language that influence rasa. Right? Poetic language means the kind of language which we use in the poems, right? That influence whom rasa in a universal or in a perfect manner, right? And making it relatable for all, right? Now, if you talk about the next one, which is called as Abhinava Gupta, we understood that he was also known as the most famous commentator on the Natya Shastra. And Abhinava Gupta in his work, right, provided a deep philosophical explanation, right? Explanation of what? Rasa. He explored how beautiful experience that can bring about a unique form of joy, happiness, or blessing that goes beyond ordinary pleasure, right? So that the pleasure you get in a general manner. So when you go for the rasa, you find out extraordinary pleasure. So other scholars like Acharya Vishwanatha, he further developed the rasa theory in his treatise, right? So you can also talk about Sahitya Darpana. So that defined the poetry as a sentence or a statement that creates an emotional impact, right? Now you find out what Acharya Vishwanatha, whose writing is called as a Sahitya Darpana, right? Similar to that, you will find out also Pandit Raj Jagannatha. So he argued that poetry is defined by its ability to express a pleasant, or you can say that meaningful or delightful meaning, right? Delightful means that something makes you very much happy, right? Excitement. Next, you would find out Acharya Ramachandra Shukla, right? So he was a modern Hindi literary critic. Shukla described rasa as the emotional state of a liberated heart, similar to how jnana means knowledge, is the mental state of a liberated mind, isn't it? So now we understood about a variety of famous, you can say that writer, right? So whose commentaries on language influence to the rasa, and their writing, right, make the description of the means aesthetic beauty of the what rasa theory. So you can say that what rasa theory is one of the most important concept in Indian aesthetics and literary criticism, isn't it? Now let's understand that we, as far as we understood different writers whose contribution and whose information pertain to the rasa, but actually, what is rasa? The term rasa is a Sanskrit word and difficult to translate directly into English, right? It is often translated as what? Aesthetic enjoyment. right? Or beautiful, a beauty that you enjoy. Or you can say emotive aesthetic. Emotive aesthetic means called as emotional beauty, isn't it? So, which refers to the deep emotional and sensory experience. Deep emotional and sensory experience that art, especially poetry and drama, that provides just as we enjoy the taste of good food, right? So similar to that, rasa is the test of or pleasure derived from artistic expression. So when the writer writes something and you read that and you enjoy, you get the pleasure. That's known as the rasa, right? Isn't it? According to Bharat Muni, the author of the Natya Shastra, rasa is the central element of the drama and literature, right? Central means main part of the drama and literature. Without rasa, drama and literature cannot be familiarized, isn't it? He states that there is no object, no activity in dramaturgy which is devoid of rasa, and he gives importance to its all-encompassing nature in artistic works, right? So then we talk about the role of rasa in literature. So, rasa theory suggests that a successful piece of poetry or drama must influence emotions in its audience. Right? When you read the poem, when you read the story, so readers get the enjoyment as well as the listeners influenced by it, isn't it? So it is not about the moral teaching or spiritual messages, but about creating and experiencing emotions, right? So this makes literature fundamental different from philosophical text, which deals with ideas and concepts, right? That is known as the role of the rasa theory in literature. So, according to Abhinav Gupta, a prominent commentator explains that in drama, rasa acts like a thread. Thread, you understand? That's called as a connection, right? Rasa acts like a thread that connects all elements, right? So creating a unified emotional experience, right? So elements that create rasa, like various elements, come together peacefully, and these elements include power, right or not? So we talk about emotional states, sanchari bhava. So sanchari bhava means what? One goes to, right? One goes to one emotion to the other emotion and gives compliments the main emotion. Then anubhava, physical manifestation. Anubhava means experience, right? Experience. So physical display of emotions like facial expressions or gesture, isn't it? So what are the elements of rasa? You can find out bhava, anubhava, and sanchari bhava, right? So three bhavas are there. And these components work together to influence the beauty that makes you happiness. Isn't it? A special type of happiness that the audience experience while engaging with a work of art. Now, let's talk about that. We understood the rasa and we understood the elements of the rasa theory, right? Rasa theory in literature. Now, let's talk about the comparison between rasa versus other forms of, you can say, experience, right? When we talk about rasa versus other forms of experience, you can talk about aesthetic experience. What do you mean by aesthetic experience? That's called as the beauty, right? So, experiencing the beauty. So, versus religious or spiritual experience. Now, the beauty that you enjoy by looking at the flower and the experience that you draw from the religious, right, or called as a spiritual. Not like spiritual or religious experiences that aim for transcendence or enlightenment. So, the aesthetic experience is about expressing and influencing human emotion, right? The main goal is to nothing but bring joy, bring happiness to the audience, not to express ultimate truths or hidden realities, but to give you nothing but happiness or joy, isn't it? So, this is called as a means rasa versus other forms, religion and you can say spiritual experiences. Then, if you talk about that rasa and the Aristotelian tradition, right? Aristotelian tradition. if you talk about that, the rasa theory that connects more closely with Aristotle's idea that literature should create pleasure and influence emotion rather than it provide didactic messages. Didactic messages means called as the suggestive, right? Suggestive messages or advice or visions of a hidden reality. So rasa theory doesn't give you that didactic suggestive advice or see the hidden reality, right? What does it give? It gives nothing but the emotion. It gives nothing but the beauty, right? So, and as in the Platonic tradition. Now, the most important thing you would find out, rasa is about emotion. Rasa is nothing but a literature as an emotive expression, and rasa is nothing but a aesthetic joy, or called as the pleasure that you derive engaging with a work of art, and that is unique and different from other kinds of pleasures or experiences. So, rasa cannot be means connected with the Aristotelian theory, religion or spiritual theory, or you can say that what means other kind of a theory, isn't it? So what it is nothing but a emotion, literature, and also aesthetic beauty or joy. Now, when we talk about the constituents of rasa, which we discussed in earlier part, what are they? Bhava, Avinaya, and you can say Staiva, right? Now, when we go for the Bhava, what is that? Emotion and mental state. Bhava means emotion and mental state. So, Bhava refers to both emotion and mental state and originating from the root that called as a Vu, right? Vu, isn't it? So, it means to be. To be. In English, it is called as a to be. In Sanskrit, it is called as a Vu. And in Hindi, it is called as a Bhava. Right or no? Or in English, it is called as a emotion and mental state. Emotion and mental state. Now, if I talk about that, it is what gives rise to the existence of something or affects it. So, bhavas as explained by Bharat that indicated the existence of things, and it can influence the minds of spectators or readers, right? So, those who see it, those who read it, so it influences to their mind. Although it often translated as emotion, isn't it? Bhava in dramaturgy refers to mental states, isn't it? So that influence poetic meaning through words, gestures, and psychophysical representation, right? So the main function of bhava in drama is what it brings about poetic meaning, right? So through gestures and representation. So how you perform, right? How you appear your expression, through that it presents, isn't it? And it affects the mind of the audience, and like how musk impacts fragrance to class, right? Like how a character wear a dress, how he expresses facial expression, isn't it? Now that is known as a emotion, that is known as a bhava. And when we talk about Abhinaya, Abhinaya is called as the art of expression, right? So how you perform on the stage. So to lead or guide, isn't it? So it is the process by which the meaning of play is conveyed to the audience. Now, if you talk about that, Abhinaya involves four different types of histrionic representation, right, to express bhava. So one is called as a vachika, Vachika. Vachika. Vachika ka matlab kya, what do you mean by that? That means imitation, copy. Copy through what? Speech and language. So what has been pointed or what has been spoken, the way you perform, isn't it? That's known as imitation to the speech and language. So second is called as angika. Angika. Angika means bongo, right? Imitation through physical expression and movement, right? Third is called as aharya, right? Aharya. So imitation through psyche or emotional transformation. So, sorry, emotional through costume and makeup, how you wear the dress and how you make up yourself. Then next one is called as a Sattvika. Sattvika is imitation through psyche or emotional change. This is the most difficult and shows the highest level of an actor's achievement. Which one? Sattva, right? Or Sattvika, right? Sattvika. So next one that you would find out is called as a Sthai Bhava, right? So what do we find out? We find out Bhava, Avinaya, then we talk about Sthai Bhava. So what is that Sthai Bhava? It is nothing but a basic mental state, isn't it? Now, Sthai Bhava refers to the basic emotions present in every human heart existing in a dormant state. Dormant means called as a lazy or sleepy state, right? So they are powerful, long-lasting emotion that become rasa when aesthetically presented. Aesthetically means beautifully presented, right? So they can be found. They dominate over other emotions and serve as the beginning of artistic expression. Which one? That called as a Sthai Bhava, right? So there are 8 Sthai Bhava, right, that you would find out in rasa. So you can say Rati. Rati means love, right? So you can talk about Sringara, right? Rati, love, or Sringara, amorous. Then second one is called as a Hasa. Hasa means laughter. That is called as a comedy, comic, Hasya. So now you find out that Rati in Odia, then Sringara is in Sanskrit, right? Hasa is the Odia, Hasya is the Sanskrit, comedy is the English, right? Soko, sorrow, sadness, and Karuna, that called as a compassionate. So Karuna, sadness, or called as a Soka, sorrow. Krodha, anger, Raudra. Raudra is called as anger. Then Ushchav. Ushchav means enthusiasm, interest, right? And we also talk about Veera, right? That heroic. Then Bhaya. Bhaya means fear, right? So, which is also known as a Vayanak. Vayanak in Hindi. Or Sanskrit also, fearful. So, you can also say that Jugupsha, that called as a disgust, disgusting, right? Or Vivasha, right? Cruelty or odious. Then you would find out that Vismaya, Vismaya means surprise, astonishment, Adbhuta, marvelous, isn't it? Now, these are called as 8 basic mental states, right? That you find out in a Sthai Bhava, isn't it? Now, beside that, you also find out which is known as a Vibhava, right? Vibhava. So, what is that Vibhava? That stimulating causes, isn't it? Stimulating causes, or you can say that is the strengthening or main causes. Vibhava refers to the what? External condition. External condition means that called as outside condition or objects that stimulate emotion, right? It is divided into 2 parts, and you can find out one is called as a alambana vibhava. Alambana. So the person, object, or thought that makes you an emotion, right? Excites an emotion. Then the alambana vibhava also refer to asraya, right? The person in whom the emotion is aroused, and visaya, the person or object for whom the emotion is awakened, right? If you talk about that vibhava, which is called as the main causes, and what that vibhava is, what the external condition. So that external condition can be called as a alambana vibhava or uddipana vibhava. Alambana vibhava is what? Now, any person, any object, any thought that makes you excitement, isn't it? Let's say that one boy sees to the girl and the girl is beautiful. So in that case, he gets excited, isn't it? Or you find out something means luxurious or costly phone, you get excited, right? And similar to that thought of going to outside journey is excited, isn't it? So asraya, alambana vibhava. Alambana vibhava refer to what? 2 things. One is called as the person, right, with whom the emotion came out, and vishaya, the person or object for whom the emotion is created or awakened. Next is called as Uddipana Vibhava, external condition. Uddipana Vibhava is what? External condition that, increases emotion, like on the basis of the surrounding, on the basis of the weather, right? So that surroundings or weather, which are known as the external conditions that increases emotion. So when you see that the condition of the weather is beautiful, you get also means excited, right? So even the surrounding, when the surrounding is happy, you get excited for that, isn't it? So beside that, you will also find out Vyabhichari Bhava, right? So Vyabhichari Bhava is called as a transitory states. So Vyabhichari Bhavas are, passing emotion. So emotion that came and passed, isn't it? So that support the increase the dominant emotion. So we also call it as a Sthayi Vasa, right? So they are like ripples on water that came out and merging with the dominant emotion, right? So like water, our thoughts are there. So they can accompany more than one dominant emotion and appear and disappear as needed. So if you take the example of a Vyabhichari Bhasa, that's called as an indifferent, right? Or joy, shame, or fear, sleep, madness. These are known as a Vyabhichari Bhasa. Then we talk about Anubhava, right? Okay. So when we talk about Anubhava, which is known as a consequence, right? Anubhava refers to the outward physical expression or symptoms of inner emotional states. Inner emotional states is called as a inside, what is going on. So these are reactions that are clearly find out on the on the body, like changes in speech, like when you get fear, gestures, speech, gestures or actions. Since emotions are internal, anubhava, no, on the basis of the experience. So since emotions are internal, they need to be expressed in a visible way for others to perceive them. For example, sadness often leads to what? Tears. When somebody cries, you find out that he is sad. Anubhavas are called such because they're displaying the actor after an emotion arises, right? Allowing the audience to experience the same emotion, right? They can be, you can say, voluntary. So voluntary means anubhavas, right? Like deliberate actions like moving eyes or eyebrows, right? So voluntary. So you put the eyebrows or called as a kajal and you find out the tears, right? That is voluntary. So second one is called as involuntary. Voluntary is known as anubhavas and involuntary are known as sattvika bhavas, right? So sattvika bhavas are called as natural responses like trembling, sweating or crying, isn't it? So somebody beats you, you cry. So you walk a lot, sweating came out. So sweating means jhala. So trembling, so you get fear and nervous for that also, isn't it? So those are nothing but called as a voluntary and involuntary consequence, right, which come under anubhavas. Then we talk about Sattvika Bhava, right? Sattvika Bhava. Sattvika Bhavas are, spontaneous bodily responses, body responses that occur when an emotion is genuinely felt, right? Such as tears or shivers. They are different from deliberate expressions and come from deep concentration and a calm mind, sattva. They can't be displayed by someone whose mind is disturbed, right? So if your mind is silent, calm, you can find out that, right? So you can talk about that stamba, paralysis, right? So sweta, sweating. So romancha, hair standing on end, right? So then you talk about Swaravanga, voice change. Then Kumpa, tremor. So then after Vaivarnya, color change. Uh, White change to red, pink. So Asru, tear, and Pralaya, right? So these are known as, or these are coming under Sattvika Bhava, right? Now, if you talk about number of rasas, the concept of rasas, emotional flavors, is central to Sanskrit poetry. Bharata originally described 8 primary rasas and each linked to basic emotion. What are they? Now you can talk about that. We understood that love, hasa, or laughter, sorrow, anger, enthusiasm, fear, disgust, and astonishment, isn't it? We read that earlier. So later, if you talk about that, scholars like Abhinava Gupta added more, such as you can say Santa Rasa. Santa Rasa means Santa, serenity, calm, right? Based on Sama, quietude, Chuprena. So new categories like Vatsalaya, right? Vatsalaya is called as a filial love, right? Excessive love, and Bhakti, devotion to God. They were also added, isn't it? Who added them? Anubhava Gupta. Anubhava Gupta. So, if you talk about Rasavadana, Rasavadana is nothing but experiencing of rasa. When the proper combination of Vibhav, determinants, Anubhava, consequence, and Sanchari Bhava, that called as a transitory emotion, occurs. A viewer experience what? Rasa, isn't it? And it is like preparing a delicious dish by combining different ingredients when done correctly. It leads to a delightful experience or excessive happiness. The emotions are expressed from the actor to the audience, allowing them to collectively enjoy the emotion. Isn't it? So, illustration of rasas through examples. Let's talk about Sringara rasa, right? Amoras. So in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Romeo's love for Juliet is depicted through his words when he sees her beauty, right? And Juliet is the object, right, which is called as a Visala Lambana. Romeo is the subject that's known as a Asrala Ambana, right? And the Mullit Night means